It started the night I found her laughing behind the bathroom door. My wife, Claire, always laughed like she owned the air in the room. But that night, the laugh had venom in it. I remember standing in the hallway, towel around my neck, dripping water on the hardwood floor, listening. Her phone was on speaker. I shouldn't have listened, but I did. And that's when everything began to rot. I told him the dress was for a work party. He believed it, like always, Claire said, smug. Then a voice I didn't recognize answered, "He's too old to keep up anyway. You're better off with me, babe." Old. That word slapped harder than a punch. I wasn't some frail man. I worked my entire life building things, houses, apartments, legacies. Even after retiring, I was sharp. My mind worked faster than men half my age. But she didn't see that anymore. She only saw the gray in my beard and the lines in my hands. Claire used to say I made her feel safe. Now, apparently, I made her feel tired. I stepped away before she opened the door. I didn't confront her that night. I went back to the bedroom, turned off the lights, and stared at the ceiling while she slipped in next to me, humming, her perfume still thick in the air, cheap and sweet, not the kind she used to wear, not the kind I ever bought her. It was a thunderstorm of realization. I didn't know how long it had been going on. I didn't know who the voice belonged to. But I knew one thing. My wife, the woman I gave everything to, was cheating. Not just physically. She was emotionally gone, invested somewhere else. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her fallback, her sponsor, her fool. The next morning, she made pancakes. Blueberry. My favorite. That's how it always is, isn't it? They feed you like you're a dog they're trying to distract while they rob you blind. "You're quiet," she said, flipping the last pancake. "Didn't sleep much," I answered. She didn't press. She never did when she had something to hide. I decided to watch her. Really watch her. The way she reached for her phone the second she thought I wasn't looking. How she smiled more at that screen than she had at me in years. I noticed the secret of texting, the silences. The way she started going to Pilates 3 times a week when she could barely touch her toes last year. And then the worst moment came. The phone. Unlocked. Lying on the counter while she showered. I know I shouldn't have. But I did. Dozens of messages. His name was Brandon. Younger. From her office. Newly divorced. Apparently, they'd been seeing each other since the company retreat 6 months ago. 6 months. Claire called him my real man. Told him I was a dinosaur. Said she'd ride this old marriage until the apartment's in my name. I dropped the phone. My hands shook. The betrayal wasn't even what gutted me, it was how calculated it was. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning a full takeover of my life. That's when I made the decision. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even cry. I planned. And I waited. Waited until my birthday. 75. My son, Derek, came over with his wife, Lauren. She strutted around my apartment like she already owned it, making comments about what she'd renovate first and asking how soon I'd be moving somewhere calmer. That's when Derek said it, like it was the most logical thing in the world. "Dad, maybe it's time you pass the apartment to us. Lauren's pregnant, and we need space. We're family. You want what's best for us, right?" I stared at him. I stared at Claire. And I smiled. "Of course," I said. "I'll handle it. Tomorrow." That night, while everyone else slept, I made 3 calls. The first was to a realtor. The second was to my lawyer. And the third? That one was to a man named Richard, a former army buddy who owned a secluded cabin in Vermont. By sunrise, the apartment was on the market. Within 2 weeks, sold. And I vanished. No goodbye. No explanations. Just silence. You see, betrayal doesn't need fireworks. Sometimes it just needs one quiet exit and a slam of a door they never see coming. I didn't answer the dozen missed calls. Not from Claire. Not from Derek. Not from anyone. I changed my number. I closed all shared accounts. I forwarded nothing. The day I left it all, except my pride. The cabin was small, but it was mine. No footsteps echoing lies. No fake smiles. Just the creaking wood, the soft hum of the wind through the pines, and the smell of honesty in the air. That first morning, I brewed coffee slowly. I drank it in silence, staring out into the mist curling over the lake like it was wrapping me in peace. And for the first time in years, I breathed without choking on pretense. Claire, meanwhile, was unraveling. She tried to call my lawyer. He ignored her. She sent emails. They bounced. Derek came by the apartment to find a young couple already moving in. Lauren reportedly cried. Claire cursed the air itself. And Brandon? He ghosted her. Turns out, the moment she wasn't the glamorous wife of a man with property and a retirement fund, she stopped being interesting. All her calculations, all her manipulation, it left her with nothing. No man, no home, no inheritance, no future. My lawyer told me she even tried to go to court to claim some sort of right to the apartment. She brought up our years of marriage, her sacrifices, the promises. She cried in front of a judge. Said I blindsided her. Said she had no idea I was unhappy. She forgot the text messages. I didn't. We submitted them. Every smug message. Every cruel joke. Every plan she'd typed out with Brandon. The court dismissed her claim within minutes. I didn't watch the hearing. I didn't need to. I sat on the dock, the sun warming my face, listening to the ripple of water against the shore while she drowned in her own mess. What broke me the most wasn't even the betrayal. It was realizing I shared a bed for decades with someone who saw me not as a partner, but as a stepping stone. I was a bridge she used to walk across into a better life, and when she thought she found younger hands, stronger arms, she tried to kick out the wood under her feet. But I burned that bridge before she could. I remember this one evening, early spring. The lake was thawing. Ducks returned, gliding through the mirror-like water. I poured a glass of bourbon and thought about the last night we spent together before I left. Claire had leaned on my shoulder, humming a song from years ago. I think it was Elton John. She looked at me like I was her forever. And I wonder, was she faking even then? Or had she already picked out which cabinet to store Brandon's shirts in? I'll never know. But what I do know is this. When someone makes you feel like a placeholder, remove yourself from the story. That's what I did. I wasn't going to be the husband who begged, or raged, or tried to compete. I was going to disappear in such a way that she'd feel the hole I left for the rest of her miserable life. She thought she won. She thought she was clever. But now she's sleeping on Lauren's couch, whining about the life I stole from her, while I sit here, watching deer drift through the trees like ghosts that never haunt. And if you asked me what the turning point was, not the cheating, not the lies, not even the birthday demand. It was the moment I saw her type. I'll stay just long enough to get the apartment. After that, I'm done playing the wife. That wasn't just a betrayal of me. That was a betrayal of everything we ever built, every word we ever said, every quiet moment I thought was real. That message lit the fuse. I didn't explode. I vanished. Sometimes, the loudest revenge is the one done in silence, without warning, without a single shout. Just a disappearing act so complete. They wake up in a life without you, and realize they never had one of their own. A month after my quiet departure, I received a letter. Handwritten. Torn edges. No return address, but the shaky handwriting gave her away. Claire. It started with a lie. Of course. I don't know what happened. I just want to talk. Maybe you misunderstood something. You left so suddenly. I read that line 5 times. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I couldn't believe how deep her delusion went. Misunderstood? I misunderstood her calling me a wallet with legs. I misunderstood her comparing me to a crusty towel while her boy toy called her queen. The only thing I misunderstood was how long she'd been pretending. She went on about how much she missed the life we had, the comfort, the safety. Said she couldn't sleep without my snoring next to her. Said she didn't care about the apartment, or the money, or any of it, just wanted her partner back. She folded the letter with care. Tried to make her words sound like a song, a plea. But all I heard was noise. Empty, selfish noise. I didn't respond. A week later, another letter arrived. This one wasn't as polished. No opening pleasantries. No apologies. Just venom. You think you're better than me? Running away like a coward? You can't just erase me. I gave you the best years of my life. You'll regret this. Ah, there she was. The real Claire. When love didn't work, she tried guilt. When guilt didn't work, she turned to threats. A woman of many masks, but always the same face underneath. Then came the visit. I saw her from the window. She didn't recognize the truck parked out front. It wasn't mine. Borrowed it from a neighbor just in case. She stood in the clearing in front of the cabin, arms folded, eyes scanning the windows like I owed her a stage. I didn't go out. I let her stand in the cold for 15 minutes. When she finally left, she screamed something at the trees, kicked the snow, and sped off in a rusted sedan. I watched her tail lights vanish like a stain being washed out by the storm clouds. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. You'd think I'd feel sad, seeing the woman I once loved unravel like that. But there was no sadness. Just relief. Like exhaling after holding your breath underwater for too long. You see, Claire never loved me. She loved what I could give her. The stability. The reputation. the comfort. But when life slowed down, when the spotlight shifted, she went hunting for a new stage to perform on. And I was just supposed to be the silent curtain behind her act. I started going into town twice a week. There's a small diner there, owned by a woman named Teresa. Widow. Sharp tongue. Soft eyes. Makes the best peach cobbler I've ever tasted. We talk sometimes. Nothing romantic. Just two people who've seen storms and made it through without pretending the rain felt good. Teresa doesn't ask questions I'm not ready to answer. She just listens when I talk. Offers coffee. Offers silence. Offers peace. One night, I told her a little of the story. Just a piece. She looked at me and said, "You're not broken. You're just bruised in places no one can see." That stuck with me. Because the truth is, I did break. Claire broke something in me I didn't know could be touched. But that's the thing about breaking. Sometimes it's the only way you find what's worth keeping. And I'll tell you this much, it wasn't her. She can keep her excuses, her lies, her crocodile tears, her bitterness. I kept my soul. And as I sit here tonight, fire crackling beside me, rain tapping on the roof, I don't feel bitter. I feel reborn. Because I didn't just lose a wife. I lost a parasite. And I gained something far more valuable. Myself. Winter melted into spring. The cabin, once buried in snow, was now surrounded by mossy green and wildflowers I didn't plant, but welcomed like uninvited guests who brought music instead of noise. Birds nested in the rafters. A fox came around sometimes, sniffing near the shed. I let him be. We both liked our solitude. Claire hadn't written in weeks. Not since her last stunt, showing up in town, pretending she was a grieving wife to anyone who'd listen. She even came into the diner once. I wasn't there. Teresa told me later, her voice low and calm, that Claire sat at the counter, ordered nothing, looked around like she expected applause. When Teresa asked if she needed something, Claire said, "I'm looking for my husband. He's confused. He's not well." Teresa, bless her, didn't even blink. "He looks plenty well to me," she said, then turned her back and wiped down a clean glass. Claire left. That was the last sighting. I knew she wasn't done, though. People like her don't end things quietly. They regroup, reload, and come back swinging when they think you've let your guard down. But I had nothing left for her to ruin. What Claire didn't understand, and probably never will, is that you can't burn a man who already walked through the fire and made peace with the scars. Derek tried reaching out, too. Sent me an email through my attorney. "Dad, I don't know what she told you, but it's not that serious. We just needed help. You've got more than you need." I thought family meant something. Family? This coming from the same man who, on my 75th birthday, told me to pack up my memories and move out so his wife could redecorate my history. He didn't want a father. He wanted a property manager. So I answered once. Just once. A single line. "You made your choices. I'm making mine." He didn't write again. Lauren did, though. And she didn't ask. She threatened. Told me they were considering legal action, that I was abandoning my duty as a patriarch, whatever the hell that meant. I didn't even open her second email. Just blocked the address. The will was already changed. Everything I owned, what little I kept, was going to charity. A shelter for abused men. I'd seen too many stories like mine end in silence and shame. I wanted my story to end differently. I wanted my ending to mean something. And still, some nights, it crept in. Not regret. Not grief. Just a quiet ache. A whisper of, how the hell did I let it get that far? The answer was simple. Love. That stupid, blinding thing. It makes you believe the best in someone long after they've stopped being worthy of it. It lets you forgive too much, overlook too much, survive on crumbs when you once at banquets. Love turns kings into beggars, and beggars into fools. But it also teaches you. Brutally. Relentlessly. And once you learn, really learn, you don't go back. The next summer, I hosted a barbecue. Nothing big. Just a few neighbors, Teresa, a mechanic named Joe who helped me fix the roof, and Marlene, a retired teacher who brought fresh strawberry pie and stories about her dead husband's poker games. No one asked about Claire. No one asked about the past. We talked about tomatoes and fishing and the best local whiskey. I laughed. Not a fake smile. Not the polite kind. A real laugh. I didn't realize how long it had been since one of those left my chest without dragging pain behind it. Later, I stood at the edge of the lake, barefoot in the grass, listening to frogs sing like they were drunk on moonlight. And I said something aloud, not to anyone in particular. Just to the trees, the sky, the version of me that used to wake up next to poison and call it love. "Thank you for leaving," I said. Because if she hadn't left me emotionally, hadn't disrespected me, hadn't stabbed me in the back while smiling across a dinner table, I'd still be trapped. Still be dying slowly in a beautiful prison she built from my blind devotion. She thought she destroyed me, but she freed me. And there's nothing more terrifying to people like Claire than a man they no longer have power over. Fall rolled in with sharp winds and golden trees, and for the first time in years, I felt the change of seasons like it meant something. Like time was no longer something I was wasting in a house where love had already died. One morning, I woke up to a knock on the cabin door. 3 quick taps. I looked through the window before opening it. Derek, standing there in a blazer like he was about to sell insurance. His face was thinner, his eyes duller. He had a folder under his arm and a nervous half-smile on his face, the kind he used to flash when he got caught lying about taking the car without permission back in high school. I opened the door but said nothing. He cleared his throat. "Hey, Dad. I needed to talk." I let him in, not out of forgiveness, just curiosity. Some part of me wanted to hear what excuse he'd dug up, what justification he thought would fix betrayal. He sat at the small kitchen table, looked around like the cabin offended him. "You really live like this now?" I poured coffee, didn't answer. He finally opened the folder. Paperwork. Numbers. Real estate listings. Bank statements. We're in a rough spot. Lauren lost her job. I've been trying to hold things down, but with the baby and the mortgage, he trailed off. I guess I thought, you might reconsider. You could help us out, just to get through this. I took the folder, closed it without looking, and set it aside. Then I said what I'd been waiting to say for months. "Derek, on my birthday, you stood in my home and told me to give it away. Not because I was dying. Not because I offered. Because you thought you deserved it." He opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. "You let your wife disrespect me in my own home. You let her laugh when she called the kitchen outdated. You didn't stop her when she said I should be grateful to die somewhere cheaper. And you stood there, smiling." His jaw clenched. She didn't mean it like that. "You said nothing. That was enough." Silence. Then he tried one more time. "You're my father. Doesn't that mean anything?" Not when I had to father myself just to survive the last 20 years with a woman who was tearing me apart from the inside. Not when you chose convenience over character. He looked like a balloon deflating. No more pitch. No more folder. Just a sad little boy sitting in a man's suit, realizing the world wasn't going to hand him what he thought he'd earned. He left without another word. The wind slammed the door shut behind him. That night, I burned the folder in the fire pit. Watched the edges curl, the ink blacken, the paper twist like it was screaming. And I felt nothing. Not anger. Not even triumph. Just finality. A few weeks later, Teresa asked me to drive with her to a nearby town for a festival. Nothing big. Hayrides. Cider. Old people dancing to classic rock while teenagers pretended not to watch. We stood in the middle of a pumpkin patch, sipping hot drinks, watching the sunset pour gold over everything. She looked at me and said, "You seem lighter." I left a heavy life behind. She nodded, like she already knew. "I think we all carry something too long before we realize we're allowed to drop it," she said. And she was right. I carried Claire for too long. I carried Derek's entitlement. I carried shame, guilt, regret, all things that were never mine to hold. I was just too conditioned to believe I owed everyone everything. Now I owe myself peace. And I'm finally paying that debt. Winter returned with a softness I hadn't expected. The cold didn't bite the same way it used to. Maybe because I no longer felt frozen inside. Maybe because the silence that used to suffocate me now felt like calm. The fire crackled each night. My hands, once used to signing checks and holding Claire's lies together, were now better suited to chopping wood and holding warm mugs. The cabin wasn't a retreat anymore. It was a reclamation. Then came Christmas. No tree. No ornaments. Just the sound of snow tapping against the windows and the hum of a radio playing old blues. I cooked a small meal, ate alone, and smiled. Not a hollow smile. A real one. Because there was no pretending anymore. No sitting at a table where every conversation was a performance. No gifts exchanged with price tags instead of meaning. Just me. Just peace. I thought about the Christmases before. Claire drunk on wine she claimed to hate. Derek on his phone, barely looking up. Lauren always hinting about what she hoped she'd get next year. Usually something expensive. Usually something I had to pretend we could afford. I had funded all their performances. Now the stage was empty. And I realized the quiet was better than the applause. In January, I got a letter. From Brandon. Yeah, him. Didn't think he had the guts. But apparently, losing Claire did something to him. He wrote about how things between them weren't what he expected. Said she'd moved in after he felt sorry for her. Claimed she was depressed. Claimed he never meant to get in the middle of anything. That part made me laugh out loud. He asked if I could call him. Said he had questions. Wanted clarity. Maybe forgiveness. Maybe just to feel better about the mess he helped create. I didn't respond. I tossed the letter into the wood stove and watched it turn to ash. Brandon never wanted forgiveness. He wanted an exit from guilt without paying the price. But I'm not a confessional booth. I'm not his redemption. He made his choices. Let him carry them. In February, Teresa brought over soup. I had a cold. Nothing serious. But she insisted. Sat on the couch while I sipped it, flipping through an old book I'd left out. She didn't ask questions. Didn't fill the air with useless chatter. Eventually, she said, "You ever think about what love should feel like?" I nodded. It should feel like soup when you're sick, not wine when you're bored. She smiled at that. We didn't talk about Claire, or the betrayal, or the apartment, or the son I used to think would carry my name with pride. We talked about music, and gardens, and how the stars looked brighter out here. That night, I sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the sky. I thought about everything I'd lost, everything I'd given, everything I'd sacrificed for people who saw me as an obstacle, not a man. And then I thought about what I'd gained. Freedom, not the kind you shout about. The kind that comes with finally being unseen by the people who only watched you for what they could take. That's when I realized I didn't just survive betrayal. I transcended it, not by winning, not by revenge, but by building a life so full of honesty that there was no room left for liars. Claire probably still blames me. Derek probably still plays the victim. Let them. Their story is over. Mine isn't. Because somewhere in the silence of this cabin, I found something I never knew I needed. Not revenge, not justice, but clarity. And clarity is the sharpest knife there is. March came with thawing snow and the scent of damp earth. Trees began to wake up again, and so did I slowly, without fanfare. Life out here didn't rush. It crept back in, like light through half-closed blinds, touching everything gently but without asking permission. One morning, I got a call. Not a number I recognized. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I listened. Claire. Her voice cracked like a record left in the sun. She sounded older. Not just in years, something else. Worn. Hollow. Hi. I don't even know why I'm calling. Maybe because I have nothing left to lose. Maybe because I still don't understand how you just disappeared. Everyone talks about how I messed things up, but they weren't there. They didn't live in that silence. You think I was cruel? Maybe. Maybe I was scared. Maybe I hated who I was with you because I didn't know who I was at all. I ruined everything, didn't I? Pause. I miss you. Click. I deleted the message. It wasn't that I felt nothing. I felt 1,000 things, most of them things I had already buried. But I didn't dig them back up. I didn't respond. Because even now, she still didn't get it. That message wasn't for me. It was for her. Another performance, this time without an audience. What she missed wasn't me. It was control. And when people like Claire lose that, they scramble. They break. They try to crawl back in through any crack they can find, whispering regret like it's a prayer. But my walls had no cracks left. I sealed them with fire, silence, and time. That same week, Derek sent another letter. Shorter this time. More restrained. Maybe Teresa was right. People eventually learn how to stop bleeding, even if it takes too long. He said he was sorry. He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for anything. Just wrote that he finally understood what it meant to be used by someone who smiled while stabbing. He didn't name Claire, but he didn't need to. He said he left her. That she'd been sleeping in someone else's bed again. That she called him bitter when he confronted her. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel pity. I felt clean. Like watching a fire from a distance, knowing the house wasn't yours anymore. I didn't write back. Not because I hated him, but because I was done raising a man who never grew up. There's a difference between closure and reopening wounds. I chose the former. By April, I had finished building the greenhouse out back. Took me 3 weeks, 2 cracked fingers, and one long night where I nearly knocked the damn thing down and started over. But I finished it. Teresa brought tomato seeds. We planted them together. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. She brought fresh bread one morning, and I noticed she'd begun leaving her gloves on my table, like maybe she wasn't always planning to take them with her. I didn't ask. Some things grow best when you don't overwater them. I stood in that greenhouse later, hands in dirt, the sun cutting through plastic panels, and I thought, This is what healing looks like. Not fireworks. Not revenge. Not some dramatic confrontation in a courtroom or a street corner. Just peace. Just quiet. Just knowing that everything I lost was meant to be lost. And everything I gained was finally mine to keep. By May, the trees were thick with green again, and the birds woke me up earlier than I liked. But I didn't mind. I used to wake up to Claire's alarm, her groans, her complaints about the day ahead before it even started. Now I woke up to light, to wind, to life. One evening, I stood by the lake, barefoot, jeans rolled up, water lapping at my ankles. The sun was going down slow, dragging long shadows behind the trees. And I thought, this could have been the end of me. Everything she did, everything they tried to take. But it wasn't. It was the beginning. Claire hasn't called again. Maybe she's finally tired. Or maybe she found another man with a title deed and a blind spot. Derek. I don't know where he is now. He might be learning. He might still be blaming. Doesn't matter anymore. I've stopped rereading his letters. I keep the last one in a drawer, unopened, not out of anger, but because the past has nothing new to say. Teresa spends more nights here now. Sometimes we talk for hours. Sometimes we just sit. I didn't think I had that in me again. Not trust, not laughter, not warmth, but it came back like spring always does. Quietly, without needing permission. She's not Claire. And I'm not the man who let himself rot in the name of loyalty. I found myself out here. Or maybe I built a new self, one who doesn't explain, doesn't beg, doesn't wait to be loved right. I learned that love isn't sacrifice. It isn't staying when your soul is screaming for a door. Love is choosing peace over performance, and respect over routines. It's not a lesson I'd wish on anyone, but it's one I'm grateful I lived through. So here's what I'll say to any man who finds himself where I was, standing in the ruins of what he thought was loyalty. Walk. Don't burn it down. Don't scream. Don't beg. Just walk. And build something better with your own two hands. Because once you stop trying to fix someone who broke you, you'll realize the best version of your life is the one where you're finally alone and free and alive. Not everyone deserves a second chance at your heart, but you do.